is up, free speech enthusiasts and free thinkers and seekers of the truth? Welcome to the Soapbox. My name is Steve. If you can't tell, I'm mobile. It's because I'm on a bike ride with my son right now. It's the summer, you gotta get out and live life. He's back there, I don't know if you can see him. I don't know how well the audio will pick up, but I thought I'd try a mobile vlog and see how I like that. Here, why don't you look at what I'm riding? Oh. Yeah, so anyway, I apologize for the jittery camera and I hope you can hear me well. Today, I wanted to talk about something near and dear to my heart lately, which is the Keep Families Together and Families Belong Together movement. For those of you who don't know anything about this, or find that you only get your news from one source, whether it be Fox News, or CNN, or MSNBC, or anything else, here's the full story. So, during the George Bush Jr. era, a law was enacted that basically said that if the families cross the border illegally, then they are to be detained, and they can be put in an expedited process to be seen in front of a judge. And the judge's decision is final. Now, most of the people that cross the border illegally in such ways are doing so to seek asylum, which is absolutely allowed by law, whether you're an illegal immigrant or not. If you are fleeing from a country where you're being persecuted or you fear for your life or the safety of your family, you can seek asylum in America. It's one of the cornerstones of what we're built on, Pax Americana and all. So that being said, every administration was free to handle this rule however they saw fit. Now, both Bush Jr. and Obama decided that the best way to handle it would be to detain the families together and go from there. Well, 5 months ago, Jeff Sessions, on behalf of Donald Trump, rolled out a thing saying that families would be separated, meaning children would be taken from their parents would be arrested, the children would be put in what was called detainment facilities or camps, and basically, good luck reuniting them, right? So they did this kind of hush-hush. Not a lot, but a lot of people knew it was going on. So in 5 months, 2,300 children, ranging from 3 months old all the way up to, sorry, 3 is wrong, 18 months old all the way up to 17 years have been separated from their parents. Now, a lot of these people that are fleeing, the argument on the conservative side has been, you know, they can cross the border legally or come to one of the official border crossings and then they'll be granted asylum that way. The problem is families were reporting that they were being turned away at the border, and when they sought asylum and they told their stories, some people even said, oh, that sob story? Yeah, no, I'm sorry, get out of here. So they'd have no choice but to try and cross illegally, which honestly, if they're seeking asylum, wouldn't have been a problem anyway, because your immigration status, whether it's illegal or not, doesn't matter if you're seeking asylum. Trump decided to ignore that rule, or his administration did, separated all these kids. Now, here's the fun part about it. By the way, I'm being very facetious when I say that. So the real issue here, not only are they sticking all these kids in these facilities, but they're grossly understaffed. A lot of times, there aren't any adults that speak their language. So what that means is, you'd have a boatload of toddlers and only four social service people that are trained, that sort of thing, that would be changing diapers. ICE agents started to get sick of it and followed their morals and quit. The problem with that is, if all the good people are quitting, all that's left might be people that aren't so good. So there have been reports of abuse, there have been reports of neglect, mockery, bullying, all that stuff on these kids because their parents tried to save their lives by crossing the border, even though it was illegal. Obviously, this spread like wildfire over the last few days, or weeks rather, even so much that Time magazine just showed their newest cover, and it's a red cover with Trump looking down at a 3 or 4 year old little girl crying, and the words in white say simply, welcome to America. So yeah, now I'm a father of a 3-year-old and a 10-year-old. Anybody who's watched this vlog knows that. It hit me right in the feels. And here's why. I first learned about this right around Father's Day. And I could hug my kids. And my kids are my world. They're the reason I'm going back to college. They're the reason that I do almost everything I do. There's a reason my wife does everything she does. So the idea that I could hug my kids on Father's Day, but all these kids who screamed out for their parents when they were being separated couldn't, as much as they wanted to, they couldn't. Just appalling to me. You know, I'm not even getting into the real nitty-gritty of it. If you want to see a little bit more about just how crazy this story is, go to Facebook and look up America's Got Trump. It was a political satire page. I'm changing it to the soapbox as soon as Facebook will let me. But it has sourced out reliable news stories about what's happening to these kids and what's been happening. Now, I mean, there were some stories where they were telling the kids that the parents, they were gonna take the kids to get them cleaned up and give them a bath, and then they'd never see them again. They were telling the parents to tell the kids it was gonna be okay, that they'd see them again real soon, and then they never see them again. So, obviously none of this is America. None of this is very American. It's an awful situation, and it shouldn't be happening in our country. So, on June 30th, there is a movement happening that some believe will be bigger than the Women's March, bigger than the school shooting marches, possibly the biggest march so far, because we're fighting for kids here. You know, no longer is this about partisan politics. It's not about policy. It's about doing what's morally right. These are children, for God's sakes. You know, not so very long ago, they did away with orphanages in the United States because they were concerned about the long-lasting mental effects that it would have on these kids. So if orphanages are not okay, imagine what these containment units, these camps, are doing for these kids. And they're being told on Fox News and things like that, they're saying, oh, it's like summer camp. It's not like summer camp. 90% of the press isn't allowed in, and they're very sequestered as to whether or not they can show pictures or video. Now, let's be real. Why would you do that unless you had something to hide? I digress. Again, I gotta remind myself, hey, it's a train. This isn't about politics. This is about right and wrong. This isn't about right or left. This is about the very moral identity of our country. This is a pivotal moment in history, a turning point. And we all have to stand together. There's a lot of misinformation out there. I was talking to a lovely lady who runs a Christian bookstore, a Christian conservative, and she's a Republican. And she told me that she didn't know anything about this. She hadn't heard about this. Literally 2,300 kids disappearing from their families. No chance of being reunited. Little to no chance. And this lady hadn't even heard about it. In the United States of America. Wow, you know? So, back to what can be done about it. As I sat there watching the news, my wife and I, we looked at each other and I heard a voice. I'd like to think it was the voice of God saying, do something. So I looked online and found out that you can go to moveon.org and you can see that there is a Families Belong Together march and protest taking place on June 30th across the country. Whatever your state is, guaranteed there is an event nearby. In Iowa, where I live, there was one in Des Moines, one in Iowa City. Now, it's 9 days until the 30th. Yesterday, I registered the one in Marshalltown, Iowa. I partnered with the Immigrant Allies of Marshalltown. I've talked to the Marshalltown Police Department, and on Tuesday I get to meet with the Marshall County Board of Supervisors because we are going to march on the courthouse lawn and we are going to stand up for those who can't speak out for themselves. Because it's the time for thoughts and prayers is never over, but the time for only giving thoughts and prayers is long gone. It's time we stand up and we fight together for children, for God's sake. We need universal reform, immigration reform. Now, for those of you who are still watching, but think I'm just some bleeding heart liberal, and are on the verge of turning this off, I urge you to hear this last part. In the interest of fairness, I get my news from multiple sources, including and not limited to the Associated Press, the AP is a big one, but NPR, Newsweek, the Post, all kinds of them. Because I feel like to get the full story, you absolutely have to, excuse me, that was a big hill over there. Anyway, you have to get it from multiple sources. That being said, the president signed an executive order. Some people feel like he caved under the pressure. That's not it, because this executive order is nothing but fluff. I've read it, top to bottom. What it says is, going forward, we're not supposed to separate children from families. That's good, we never should have started. But it also says that families as a whole can be detained in new detainment units and new detainment facilities for an indefinite period of time. So we can, if somebody crosses the border illegally, even claiming asylum, they will now be able to be detained for an unlimited amount of time. That's that direction we're heading. Not to mention the fact that this new executive order does nothing for the 2,500 children, or 2,300, 2,300, whatever, that are locked up now. The real funny part about all of this is that in it, he says we're gonna make every effort to get these kids back with their families, reunite them. I applaud that 100%. The problem is that his administration said today, literally less than 24 hours after he signed this executive order, that they have no idea how and they doubt they're gonna be able to. That's what we're at, that's where we're at. That's what's going on in this country right now, folks. So I urge you to stand up. Go to moveon.org, start your own rally, or if you'd like to come to mine, I've created a short link. It's http://tinyurl.com/FBT Marshall Co. That stands for Families Belong Together, Marshall County. Thank you for checking it out. I'll put it in the link in the description as well. But thanks for checking this post out. Please share it. Let's get rid of the misinformation. Stay on top of this story. Get your news from multiple sources. If your news source, your primary news source, isn't covering this story, then they're not doing their job, and you need to find one that is. Because this is a huge story. This is a humanitarian issue. There's a reason that we're dropping out of the UN Ethics Council. It's insane. So, you know, forget politics, forget who's in charge right now. We need to come together. We need to stand out against this, and this has nothing to do with a border wall, okay? This is way beyond any of that. And frankly, the wall wouldn't work anyway. There's peaks and valleys. It's just going to cost a lot of money, and they'll find ways to get around it, so it's a waste of time and money. So to try and tie that to this and say these children will all be released to their families as soon as we have funding, that's ridiculous. And I think that anybody who really has some common sense will know that. There is a way to fix this. I'm not a politician, so I don't know what it is, but I think it's time our politicians figure it out, because if they're not the smartest people in the room, they don't need to be in that room anymore, and in November they won't be. So, thank you very much again for your time. That website again is tinyurl.com/FBT, F as in families, B as in belong, T as in together. Yeah, listen to him, he's tired of me sitting around. FBT Marshall Co. And if you're not in the Marshalltown area, that's fine. Click on the Families Belong Together logo and pick your town. Thank you. I'm going to step off the soapbox. I love you all.